আমার সোনার বাংলা, আমি তোমায় ভালোবাসি। চিরদিন তোমার আকাশ, চিরদিন তোমার আকাশ, তোমার বাতাস আমার প্রাণে। ও মা আমার প্রাণে বাজায় বাঁশি সোনার বাংলা, আমি তোমায় ভালোবাসি। ও মা ফাগুনে তোর আমের বনে ঘ্রাণে পাগল করে মরি। হায় হায় রে ও মা ফাগুনে তোর আমের বনে ঘ্রাণে পাগল করে। ও মা ঘ্রাণে তোর ভরা খেতে কি দেখেছি, আমি কি দেখেছি মধুর হাসি সোনার বাংলা, আমি তোমায় ভালোবাসি। কি শোভা কি ছায়া গো, কি স্নেহ কি মায়া গো, কি আঁচল বিছায়েছ বটের মূলে নদীর কূলে কূলে। মা তোর মুখের বাণী আমার কানে লাগে সুধার মতো, মনে হায় হায় রে মা তোর মুখের বাণী আমার কানে লাগে সুধার মতো। মা তোর বদন খানি মলিন হলে আমি নয়ন, ও মা আমি নয়ন জলে ভাসি সোনার বাংলা, আমি তোমায় ভালোবাসি।
Thank you for coming. It's been 10 years. It's been 10 fantastic years since we began. It's been over 10 tough years since we took over a dying company that was selling content as a news agency to very few clients, mostly local newspapers and television channels in Bangladesh. In the middle of 2006, we signed on the dotted lines to take responsibility for the members of staff in Dhaka, the number of whom I later found out to be 86, and dozens of others outside Dhaka. All of them had not been paid for some time. The argument from the employee promoters was, save the jobs and the name. That's exactly the point those who initially came to me seeking to salvage the sinking news outfit, then branded as BD News, tried to make. Of course, they have gone to other potential rescuers, including some of the wealthy, politically powerful media owners at that time. We tried to save the jobs, but I did not save the name. We rebranded it. We had a new editorial guideline in place. Most important of all, a new, no-nonsense, invaluable editorial process was established with clearly drawn lines of responsibility. Many of my colleagues who have been running the show prior to the takeover did not like the way we wanted to run it. They did not like being accountable to a proper process, so I decided to part company. That entailed some cost, a cost we had not anticipated. I still remember the key dates to the eventual launch of Bangladesh's, arguably the world's first 24/7 internet-only news publisher with a news gathering operation dedicated solely for the purpose. The anecdote about how the first of its kind news venture came into being has been told time and again. This time, my colleagues have found a different way to tell the story. Again. A lot has happened in the 10 years as tried to deliver news as it happens. A lot has changed in the 10 years. My son, when he took over, was just 10 years old, barely taking any interest in anything called news. Today, as he turns 21 this December, he tries to lecture me on Bangladesh's rural economy, discusses the state of affairs in American politics, and talks about the challenges facing the British Labour Party. The 14-year-old schoolgirl I met at a social event then is a 24-year-old confident corporate executive pitching for multi-million-dollar deals. In June 2006, the former deputy leader of the Bengal Liberation Force would be celebrating his 60th birthday in a few months' time. Next month, the 12th to be precise, our young Minister for Information will be turning 70. So time does fly, but not memories, the milestones, the statistics. numbers have grown phenomenally thanks to technology. Our audiences have changed, not just in their size. The phones now are bigger, faster, cheaper, and amazing multitasker. More people browse bdnews24.com today than ever before, on mobile phones, on tablets, phablets. And the number is growing literally by the day. Google Analytics, relying on something that crawls the entire World Wide Web every 15 minutes, surprises me. The data and demographics, the audience profile, their choices and preferences are mind-boggling. Serving a new generation, a new kind of audience with its changing taste and temperament is quite a task. And for all this turbulent 10 years, we've loved that challenge. We have had to innovate. 5 years ago, we marked our birthday as a 24/7 internet news publisher, highlighting this aspect of our operation. We continue to do things differently. Let's look at the list of firsts, national and global, that we claim credit for. Coming up with all this first has been a constant source of satisfaction and motivation. But it has often been a cause for pain. Ours, unfortunately, is a country where copying is no crime. Many years ago, a manufacturer, when I challenged him about a certain product of his company, told me that he could even get BSTI, Bangladesh Standards and Testing Institution, to certify a man as a woman if he wanted. I'm not sure how much the situation has changed now. An act of plagiarism is rarely punished in Bangladesh. We hear of teachers being appointed to our top. Universities ignoring specific charges of plagiarism. Copyright has no meaning to many people. Violation is not considered too much of an issue. Once I confronted the editor of a major newspaper and I asked him, why do you copy-paste so many of our stories, which my colleagues take great pains to produce? He asked me, how many? I said, 9 to 10 every day, according to my monitors. He said, no, I don't think that many, maybe fewer. So he admitted, shamelessly, he's a good friend of mine. We've been friends for many, many years. Maybe he thought it was one of his fundamental rights. Another editor, when served with a notice for publishing without permission, content of a major international news agency for which we had the distribution rights in Bangladesh, responded, it's all available on the internet. I told my colleagues who were dealing with the notice, go tell him that Romna Park is an open space where the ruling Awami League has been holding their two-day council. It's a huge space, lot of space, big enough to build a palatial house. Ask him to build a house for himself there. So I've been very angry at times, helpless in most cases. Because stealing our content to such an extent has meant a huge loss of revenue for us and a lot of hardship as a result. Then there is this issue of similar sounding news websites, UK BD News, My BD News 24, Real BD News, all sorts of news 24s. Twitter has two accounts, BD News and BD News 24, both occupied by rogue political elements in this country, posting anything and everything opposed to our editorial standards and values. Our own handle at bdnews24.com, not .com, at bdnews24.com, is losing out in this battle for numbers. I've simply failed to make people in very important positions in this country understand that branding is of some value, that takes quite a bit of investment of many kinds to create or develop. But it's also a matter of satisfaction for us that we've been good enough to be copied by so many, that there are so many sites today that have just followed in our footsteps. Online newspaper, the phrase itself, was invented in the newsroom of bdnews24.com, some people may recall. But we do not accept copyright infringement anymore. A major English newspaper's online edition, many of you are carrying mobile smartphones, you can check now. A major English newspaper's online edition even copied this notice of ours that any unauthorized use or reproduction of bdnews24.com content for commercial purposes is strictly prohibited and constitutes copyright infringement liable to legal action. I say this with some confidence because a friend of mine, an English lawyer who's a personal friend of mine, drafted this for me based on a draft provided by my colleagues. I still remember the tweaking he did, the changes he made. It's been copied and pasted by a major English news provider in this country. I'm not going to name the paper. At some point, we decided enough is enough and started preparing for legal battle. Just a glimpse of the examples that my angry, frustrated colleagues have put together. All this means we need efficient state institutions to create a facilitating environment for the market players of all kinds, including the media. Rarely do I agree with anything the World Bank tries to tell us, but in this particular instance, I agree with the chief economist of the World Bank Group, who was in Dhaka the other day. I was there listening to him. I agree with him when he referred to the familiar story that to sustain growth, an economy needs less government. But in Bangladesh, he said, the real problem is there is too little of the type of government that the market needs to keep performing better. I'm sure what he meant broadly by that was countries like ours needed more mature or more sophisticated regulatory regime. And in my humble opinion, we need a more developed system for dispensation of justice, which is more aware of and far more sensitive to such crucial issues. In fact, I have said on many occasions much of what I wanted to say today, or I'm trying to say today. I know many of you complain about the quality of media professionals in Bangladesh. I'm probably one of those very few that accept publicly that criticism and accept that we are no exception when it comes to poor quality in some cases when it is about form. Content is a different matter altogether. When it comes to authenticity, there is no compromise. We continue to invest a lot in our editorial gatekeeping, in ensuring the quality of information, in making sure the ethical standards of journalism are maintained. When we talk about fairness and balance, we mean it. When we preach credible source is of paramount importance, we practice it. When we promise we'll not link content to advertisement, we deliver on it. Our disgruntled advertisers will vouch for that. The only problem is we end up paying a heavy price in terms of lost revenue. Our investments in the quality of our journalism have paid off. Our intrusion in the no-go areas in Bangladesh's establishment has given us the satisfaction that we have tried to do our job. Our crusade against conflict of interest has cost us friends. Ministers are unhappy, angry. Our stories have highlighted human rights violations and extrajudicial killings, consumer rights, environment and nature conservation. One of the key no-go areas in Bangladesh is media itself. We congratulate ourselves on our work on that front. Neglected public health issues such as disability, autism, mental health have been very high on our list of priorities. We take pride in the fact that we are pioneers in child journalism. Our hello.bdnews24.com is an achievement Events Children Agency is also proud of. Video journalism by these children is a global first. And again, UNICEF is a pioneering partner. While these are the humble CSR efforts of a poor company, our sports sites often fail to find a competitor in Bangladesh. Thanks to a wonderful bunch of professionals, I'm proud to have them as my colleagues.
প্রথমে বিডি নিউজের প্রতিষ্ঠাবার্ষিকীতে আমি শুভেচ্ছা জানাই, আমার আন্তরিক শুভেচ্ছা জানাই এবং বিডি নিউজ সবসময় খুব ভালো স্পোর্টসে বিশেষ করে খুব ভালো নিউজ করে আসছে এবং খুব তাড়াতাড়ি আমরা নিউজটা পাই এবং বিডি নিউজ ইউরোপিয়ান ফুটবল থেকে শুরু করে সব কিছুই কভার করছে। সো আমি নিজেও ফুটবলের খুব ভক্ত এবং আমরা এই নিউজটা খুব তাড়াতাড়ি পাচ্ছি, সো খুব ভালো লাগে। আর একটা ব্যাপার হচ্ছে অবভিয়াসলি বাংলাদেশের সমস্ত স্পোর্টসকে আপনারা যদি সমানভাবে দেখেন এবং সমানভাবে নিউজ করেন তাহলে সবাই উপকৃত হবে, সমস্ত খেলোয়াড়ই উপকৃত হবে এবং অবশ্যই শেষ করার আগে আবারও বিডি নিউজকে আমার আন্তরিক শুভেচ্ছা।
Mashrafi is holidaying with his family in Cox's Bazar, so he couldn't be here tonight. On public policy related to media, we have advocated uniform regulation for news providers regardless of medium. Ownership and licensing are two weak elements in our media landscape. We have sought to redefine the role of media in setting political agenda. It's been quite difficult to convince many of my media colleagues that activism and journalism are different. One thing we must make clear, we're not activists, so I do not say some of those familiar stuff on media freedom. In my view, as far as I'm concerned, media is relatively free in Bangladesh. Yet the definition of media freedom is important. Whose freedom? Whose freedom are we talking about? I do get phone calls. My colleagues get much more, many more. It's natural that the PR executives, government or corporate, will try to do their job. And there are other elements that do intervene. Let them do it. My point is, let them do it. Nothing is perfect in this country. We do not even know how to manage our traffic in this country. The point is, we as journalists have to do ours. We need to learn and equip ourselves so we know how to deal with those other elements in the state. Why can't we do it? The answer is very simple. The ownership. I've said this everywhere, here in this country and anywhere else in the world, whenever there's a discussion on media freedom, on Bangladesh or on any other country. I repeat, the problem is ownership. It's the kind of people that own media outlets in this country that puts up all the barriers to free media. And the blame has to be put squarely on the politicians. On the politicians in this country. Some of the top politicians are sitting right here in front of me. They are my guests here tonight, but we must remind them of their responsibility. The politicians are answerable to the people, and we represent the people when we exercise our freedom as media professionals. After all, freedom of the press or media belongs to the people. And on behalf of the people, we exercise it. Don't get me wrong when I blame the politicians for all the problems. They are our leaders. But they must be accountable to us when we raise questions on behalf of the people. Our unequivocal support for political process is well known. Let me quote myself from a statement I made 3 years ago exactly here on this stage. Playing politics is not media's business. We do not support any media entity getting engaged in changing regimes. We do cover politics, analyze or comment on political developments, but getting involved directly should not be in our scheme of things. When people talk about third force, we'd like to believe they're talking about a third political force. We have never supported a third force outside the political process. It is the responsibility of the politicians to protect the process. And the media must be in a position to support that, because we have a stake. A free and functioning media cannot sustain without a proper political process. I'd said the same thing 8 years ago in 2008, when the military was virtually running this country. That was 19th of November 2008. I remember the date. That day was full of history. I'll be coming to that later. Ladies and gentlemen, we love the challenge of doing journalism in an atmosphere that at times refuses to be friendly to new initiatives. The government, for instance, spends more money on the old media. The government's advertisement policy is not just unrealistic, it's anachronistic. Newspapers selling not even 200 copies are getting government adverts, while internet publications with millions of readers, tens of millions of readers in fact, are ignored. The current practice means the government is wasting taxpayers' money because the return is almost zero. Of the private companies, I would just say what I said 8 years ago, exactly here on this stage. because nothing has changed in the 8 years. Let me quote myself. Worse is when we confront corporate corruption. We have been threatened time and again. We've been punished in various forms. My colleagues have been taken off the list of invitees to media briefings by some companies. It is very sad that big spenders in market communications can dictate news agenda in this country. Rarely do we find friends when we try to fight such behavior from some companies. As I refer to our second anniversary dinner, I'd like to pay tribute to Dr. C.S. Karim, a great friend of BDNews24.com and a great personal friend who is no longer with us. Handan Shah of BNP also passed away recently. We also lost our very dear Baby Appa, our social affairs editor, Baby Maudud, recently. Ladies and gentlemen, for all these years, we've been witness to history while doing our job of writing the first rough draft of history. These two top leaders, Sheikh Hasina and Khalid Zia, confirmed to me they would be attending our event on that November evening of 2008. But things changed at the last minute. An advisor who had been appointed after the January 2008 sacking of 4 advisors called me in the morning to tell me how we should handle the situation. He told me, we'll take them to another room when they arrive, and then I stopped him at that point and told him, brother, this is my program, and they're coming to attend the dinner, nothing else, so let me handle it. I realized in the evening that I had made a mistake. Months or years later, I learned what exactly happened after that phone conversation on the 19th November morning of 2008. We all knew that advisor was actually the mouthpiece for the military section of that government with a civilian facade. 2 of the advisors later confirmed to us that they had been turned away while being on the way to this hotel. Others refused to comment on what had gone wrong in that evening. In less than 2 months, one of my missing guests went on becoming the Prime Minister of Bangladesh and the other the leader of the opposition. Even much of today's audience in this room, I know, has little idea what it was like doing journalism in 2007 and 8. Talk about phone calls. The regime that our so-called civil society, or at least a prominent part of it, backed, was notorious in its attempts to stifle or control the media. Our competitors were creating all sorts of bad examples in our media history. Do you want to take a look at those headlines once again? Because we're often blamed for having poor memories. Eight years ago, I made another observation, and I can't help quoting myself. As we celebrate BDNews24.com, we celebrate the power of the internet. When we celebrate the power of the internet, we actually celebrate people power. Internet is free and accessible to all, rich and poor, weak and mighty. Good thing is, I no longer confront this question, how many people actually have access to internet? My standard response would be, how many people read newspapers in this country? Today, I wouldn't even try to raise the issue again. My colleagues did some investigation in the run-up to our 10th anniversary. The falling numbers of print newspapers would be embarrassing for my friends who run and manage them. According to BTRC, the chairman is here, I'm sure he'll bear me out. The number of internet connections in Bangladesh today is over 62.3 million. Am I right, Chairman? 62.3 million. The minister is also here. Nearly the size of the population in the United Kingdom. You can well imagine the kind of audience we reach if we get anywhere near our share of as the leading provider or the number one provider of news. The bilingual site with its landing page having English news has actually a much larger volume of Bangla content. Given the reach, volume and the depth of our readership reflected in our page views, time on site, etc., we are aware of our responsibility in shaping our readers' cultural and intellectual taste with the broader objective being inform, educate and entertain. As we celebrate 10 years of doing what we love doing, I reach a personal milestone. Last June I completed 10 years with this company, both as Chief Executive and Editor-in-Chief. Today I complete 10 years as Editor-in-Chief of the first Internet-only news publisher. And with me, many of my colleagues who joined between June and late 2006 complete their 10 years. It's a privilege to have this wonderful bunch of people as colleagues. For some of them, no adjective is good enough. Finally, there's one person who needs to be mentioned. Just one word for him. Fantastic. A fantastic partner in the journey that never stops surprising us, even shaking us with new challenges, new barriers. Asif Mahmood, thank you. A colleague who flew all the way from London yesterday to be with us here tonight wrote a piece some months ago that an editor or head of a news outlet should not occupy the position indefinitely and suggested a tenure of 10 years or so. The suggestion has given me some food for thought. Despite all the challenges, ladies and gentlemen, all the stress, all the hardships, stress comes from all those phone calls and from the advertisers, all the hardships, all the threats on social media threads, on IM or on phone, or even face-to-face meetings. You know who these people are. People who kill foreigners on the street or in restaurants, or their friends, or their supporters or backers in this country. All the propaganda, despite all the uncertainty, it's been a terrific 10 years. Thank you. Thank you again for coming and for giving us the opportunity to say thank you for all the support we've got from you throughout the year and throughout all these 10 years. Thank you for being with us. I hope you enjoy the dinner. I'd like to call a group of guests who I believe would be representative of the total audience onto the stage. They will form the team that will do the honors. I'd like to start with our honorable speaker, Shirin Sharmin Chaudhry. And then Minister for Information, Hassan Al Hock Inu. Inu Bhai, I'd like to ask you to come onto the stage to join the speaker. And Minister for Roads was supposed to be here, but he's so elated, so excited tonight. He's just been made the General Secretary of the ruling party, so he couldn't make it. Please, cake cut away too. Our young Minister for ICT, Chairman of BTRC, Shahjahan Mahmood, some members of the civil service. Can I ask the Executive Chairman of BIDA, Bangladesh Industrial Development Authority, Qazi Aminul Islam. Very important people are waiting for you. You cannot say no to it. Dr. Kamal Abdul Nasir Chaudhry, the Senior Secretary in charge of the Ministry of Public Administration. Former MP, celebrated actress, 1960s and 70s heartthrob icon, probably the first superstar in Bangladesh cinema, Kaburi, Sara Begum Kaburi, my personal favorite.